The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. 900 alien representatives sat frozen in their seats. Some floated in special gravity pods. Others breathed through tubes connected to tanks, filled with gases from their home worlds. A few existed only as holograms, their real bodies light years away. But all of them stared at the massive doors that had just opened. The doors were 300 meters tall. They were made of black stone from a dead planet. In 10,000 years of Council history, those doors had opened for emperors, for gods, for beings that could destroy stars with a thought. None of those entrances had ever silenced the chamber like this, because walking through those doors were humans. There were only 5 of them. 5 small figures in simple gray uniforms. They looked fragile compared to the massive aliens around them. They had no claws, no armor, no visible weapons. They were soft and breakable. The kind of creatures that any species in the chamber could kill with a casual swipe dot, and yet every alien in the room was afraid. High, Chancellor Veltris watched from his elevated platform at the center of the hall. His species, the Mordani, had led the council for 6,000 years. They had blue skin that changed color with their emotions. Right now, his skin was pale white, the color of fear. The woman leading the human group walked with perfect calm. Her name was Admiral Rebecca Stone. She was 51 years old. She had gray hair cut short and eyes that seemed to look through everything they saw. Behind her walked 4 officers, each moving with the same quiet confidence. They stopped at the center of the chamber, surrounded by hundreds of watching aliens. Admiral Stone looked up at the Chancellor. She did not bow. She did not show any sign of respect or submission. She simply waited. Veltris forced his skin to return to its normal blue. He could not show weakness. Not now. Admiral Stone, he said, his voice amplified by crystals in the walls. You have answered our emergency signal. The Council thanks you for coming. The words tasted bitter in his mouth. For 200 years, the Council had kept humanity locked away. They had built a barrier around Earth's solar system and declared the planet off limits. They had classified humans as too dangerous to exist among civilized species. And now they were asking those same humans for help. Admiral Stone's expression did not change. The signal said you were facing extinction. We came to discuss what that means. A ripple of movement passed through the chamber. Representative Crix, a massive insect creature from the Thornax Collective, clicked his mandibles in anger. Discuss? Crix demanded. You are prisoners. Monsters. You should be grateful we allowed you to leave your cage at all. Admiral Stone turned to look at him. She did not raise her voice. She did not show any emotion. She simply met his compound eyes and held them. Representative Crix, she said calmly. In the past 3 years, the Thornax Collective has lost 217 colony worlds to the Devourer. Your military has been reduced to less than 20% of its original strength. Your species will be extinct within 1 generation. She paused. We are not the ones who should be grateful. Crix made a sound like breaking glass. Other representatives shouted in their various languages. The translation systems filled the air with overlapping protests and accusations. Chancellor Veltris raised his hand, and the chamber fell silent. Admiral, he said carefully, you must understand our position. Humanity was isolated for good reasons. Your history is filled with violence. You killed your own kind over small differences. You built weapons capable of destroying your entire planet. You are, by any measure, the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Yes, Admiral Stone agreed. We are. She turned to face the full assembly. Her 4 officers spread out behind her, standing at perfect attention. 200 years ago, you looked at humanity and saw killers. You saw a species that fought wars over invisible lines on maps. A species that invented nuclear bombs before it invented fair government. A species that seemed determined to destroy itself. She clasped her hands behind her back. You were not wrong. The chamber was completely silent. Even the atmospheric systems seemed to stop humming. But you made a mistake. You saw our violence and thought it was madness. You saw our wars and thought we enjoyed them. You saw our weapons and thought we built them because we loved destruction. Admiral Stone's voice grew harder. We do not love destruction, Chancellor. We simply understand something that your peaceful civilizations have forgotten. The universe is not safe. It is not kind. It does not care about your philosophies or your good intentions. And when something comes that wants to consume you, when something arrives that cannot be reasoned with or negotiated with or understood, you need someone who knows how to fight. She took one step forward. You called us ruthless. You locked us away because you were afraid of what we might do. And now something has come to your perfect, peaceful galaxy. Something that eats worlds and does not stop. Something that has killed more beings in 3 years than all of humanity's wars combined. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but the crystals carried it to every corner of the massive hall. And when you realized that your diplomats were useless, when your peaceful fleets were swallowed whole, when you finally understood that some enemies cannot be talked to, you sent a signal to the monsters in the cage. She smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Well, Chancellor, here we are. Veltries felt something cold settle in his stomach. Because she was right. The Council had spent years trying to communicate with the Devourer. They had sent their best minds, their most advanced ships. Their greatest diplomats. None had returned. The civilized species of the galaxy had evolved beyond war. They had removed aggression from their genes. They had built perfect societies where violence was unknown, and now something was eating them alive. What do you want? Veltries asked quietly. Admiral Stone's smile faded. Her expression became serious. We want equal standing in this council. No more barriers. No more classification as dangerous animals. Full membership, full rights, full respect. Impossible, Crix immediately said. You would use your military power to control us. You would become tyrants. If we wanted to control you, Admiral Stone replied, we would have done it 200 years ago. Your barrier was impressive technology. We broke through it within the first decade. We have had ships capable of reaching any world in this galaxy for almost 2 centuries. Dead silence. We stayed in our cage, she continued, because we were waiting. We knew that someday your peaceful galaxy would face something it could not handle. We have been preparing for that day ever since. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species after species. We are not asking for permission. We are offering you survival. The only question is whether you want to live. Chancellor Veltris looked at the faces of his fellow council members. He saw fear. He saw anger. He saw desperation. And underneath it all, he saw hope. Terrible, frightening hope. We will need to discuss this, he said finally. Take your time, Admiral Stone replied. But remember, Chancellor, every hour you debate, the Devourer consumes another 1,000,000 lives. Every day you hesitate, another world dies. She turned and walked toward the doors, her officers falling into step behind her. We will be waiting, she called over her shoulder. We have been waiting for 200 years. What is a few more hours? The massive doors closed behind them, and the great hall erupted into chaos. Monsters had answered the call, and nothing would ever be thee. Sane. The council debated for 18 hours. Admiral Rebecca Stone and her team waited in a small room near the grate. Hall, they did not complain. They did not ask for food or rest. They simply sat and waited, watching the door with patient eyes, Commander David Holt, Admiral Stone's second-in-command, leaned close to her. "They are terrified of us," he said quietly. "Good," Stone replied. "Fear makes them take us seriously. It also makes them dangerous. They might decide we are a bigger threat than the Devourer." Stone's lips curved slightly. Then they would learn exactly why they should be afraid. Inside the Great Hall, the debate had grown heated. Representative Crix was arguing with Elder Soling, an ancient being from a species called the Watchers. The Watchers were among the oldest races in the galaxy. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched stars die. "You cannot trust these humans," Crix clicked angrily. "Every report tells us they are violent by nature. They conquered their own planet through war. They still eat the flesh of other creatures. They are animals." "Animals," Elder Solen said slowly, her voice like rustling leaves. "Yes, I have read the reports. They consume organic matter to survive. So do the Thornax. So do 8 other council species. That is biology, representative, not morality. The Thornax eats synthetic proteins. These humans hunt and kill. And yet," Solen said, "they are the only species that answered our call." That silenced the argument, because it was true. When the Devourer first appeared at the edge of known space, the Council had sent its unified defense fleet. These were peacekeeping ships from every major civilization. Armed with the most advanced technology available, the Devourer consumed them in 6 hours. After that, the Council sent messages to every member species. They asked for military help. Ships, weapons, soldiers. Anything. The answer was the same. Everywhere. No. The Thornax Collective had not fought a war in 5,000 years. Their warriors had become artists and poets. The Morgani had removed aggression from their genetic code 8 generations ago. The Watchers believed that violence was always wrong, no matter the circumstances. Species after species had the same story. They had evolved past conflict. They did not know how to fight. They did not want to know. And so, in desperation, someone had activated the old frequency. The emergency signal that had not been used in 2 centuries. The signal that went directly to Earth, and the humans had answered. "We have a proposal," Admiral Stone announced when she was called back to the Great Hall. "If the Council will hear it." Chancellor Veltries nodded wearily. "Speak. We will defend your galaxy." The simple words hung in the air. Crix made a harsh sound. "You? 5 of you? Against the Devourer?" "Not 5. Stone gestured, and one of her officers stepped forward. Lieutenant Maya Torres activated a small device. The chamber's display systems captured the image and made it huge. Everyone could see what she was showing them. It was a military readout. Ships, soldiers, weapons. "The United Earth Coalition has 40 million soldiers in active service," Stone said. "We have 2,800 combat vessels. We have weapons your scientists have never imagined because your species stopped making weapons thousands of years ago." The display shifted, showing fleet formations and strategic projections. "We have been preparing for this moment since you locked us away. We knew that someday something would come that your peaceful civilizations could not handle. We knew you would need the monsters." She paused. "Our price is simple. Equal membership in the Galactic Council. No more barriers. No more treating humanity like a disease to be contained." "Impossible," Crix said immediately. "You would dominate us. You would, representative." Stone's voice was cold. "If we wanted to dominate you, we would have done so long ago. Your barrier was never a prison. It was a polite fiction. We chose to stay behind it because we were waiting for this day." She looked around the chamber. "We are not asking for your permission. We are offering you salvation. Accept it or die. Those are your only choices." Chancellor Veltries felt very old in that moment. very tired. There will need to be conditions, he said. Oversight, rules. No, Stone replied simply. You hired the monsters, Chancellor. You do not get to tell the monsters how to hunt. The vote took 2 more hours. In the end, it was not close. 847 representatives voted to accept humanity's offer. 53 voted against. The rest abstained. Humanity was no longer a prisoner. Humanity was now a weapon. 12 hours after the vote, the first human fleet arrived at a planet called Karath 4. The Devourer had been consuming it for 4 days. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the tactical displays. Around her, human officers worked with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this their entire lives. Admiral, Lieutenant Torres reported, the Devourer has consumed about 30% of the planet's surface. Estimated remaining population is 15 million. They have maybe 60 hours before total absorption. And the local defense fleet retreated to a moon. They refused to engage. Commander Holt looked up from his station. I do not blame them. The Devourer absorbed their last rescue attempt in 20 minutes. Stone nodded slowly. Her eyes were fixed on the main display. The Devourer appeared as a spreading darkness across the planet's surface. It looked like ink bleeding through paper, destroying everything it touched. No one knew exactly what the Devourer was. Some theories said it was a weapon created by an ancient species. Others said it was a natural phenomenon, something that existed between normal matter and something else entirely. All anyone knew for certain was that it consumed everything it touched and could not be stopped. Every weapon used against it only made it stronger. Contact the local command, Stone ordered. Tell them we will establish a defense line. Request that they begin evacuation of the remaining population. Admiral, Holt said quietly, the local commander has already declared those 15 million people acceptable losses. Stone's jaw tightened. It was the only emotion she showed. Then we will evacuate them ourselves. The Battle of Karath 4 lasted 9 hours. Human ships did not try to fight the Devourer directly. They had read the reports. They knew that weapons only fed the monster. Instead, they used a different approach. They called it Protocol Shepherd. Gravity projections created artificial barriers that slowed the Devourer's spread. Electromagnetic pulses disrupted whatever senses it used to track prey. Debris fields were scattered in its path, giving it something to consume besides ships and people. Was not a solution. It was delay, and during that delay, human dropships descended to the planet's surface. Sergeant Anton Reyes had fought on 3 worlds before the barrier fell. Border conflicts, mostly. Small wars between Earth's remaining nations before the coalition unified them. He had never seen anything like Karath 4. The local species were tall and thin, with 4 arms and large dark eyes. They were scientists and builders. They had created some of the most beautiful structures in the galaxy. Now they were running. Reyes and his squad touched down in what had once been a city. The buildings around them were already half dissolved, their edges fading into the creeping darkness that advanced from the east. Sergeant, Private First Class Nia Kozlov reported, the Devourer is moving at about 300 meters per hour. We have 90 minutes before this position is gone. Then we work fast. Reyes activated his translator. Citizens of Karath 4, I am Sergeant Reyes of the United Earth Coalition. We are here to evacuate you. Please follow my soldiers. The locals stared at him. One of them, an elder with faded coloring, stepped forward. You are human. Yes. The ruthless ones. The monsters. Reyes met the elder's eyes without flinching. That is what they called us. But right now, we are the ones trying to save your lives. You can call us whatever you want after we get you off this planet. The elder studied him for a long moment. Then he turned to his people and began speaking in their language. They started to move. Over the next 87 minutes, Reyes and his squad evacuated 4,819 civilians. They carried the injured. They shielded children with their own bodies. They lost 2 soldiers to the Devourer when it moved faster than expected, Private Garcia and Corporal. Singh had stayed behind to make sure the last transport could launch. When the dropship finally cleared the atmosphere, Reyes looked at the survivors filling the cargo bay. They were watching him with expressions his translator could not fully read. Why? The elder asked finally. Your admiral was clear. You came for equal standing in the council. These are not your people. We called you monsters for 200 years. Why risk your lives for us? Reyes was quiet for a moment. Because you needed help, he said. And we could help. The elder's large eyes blinked slowly. That is all? That is everything. In the great hall, Chancellor Veltris watched the battle feeds in his private chamber. The humans were not winning. That was obvious. The Devourer could not be defeated by force, but they were not losing either dot in 9 hours. The human fleet had stopped the Devourer from spreading beyond Karathfor's surface. They had evacuated 14 million of the 15 million survivors. And they were still sending dropships for the last million, despite the danger. Most remarkable of all, they did this while suffering minimal casualties. Not because they avoided danger, but because they managed it. Every risk was calculated. Every sacrifice served a purpose. Veltris had seen ancient war records. Images of armies charging to their deaths in mindless fury. Civilizations destroying themselves over trivial disputes. This was nothing like. This was discipline. Strategy, ruthlessness with a purpose. You were wrong about them, Elder Solen said. Peering beside him, Veltris did not turn around. Yes, we all were. No, Solen said. You misunderstood. You saw their capacity for violence and thought it was all they were. But violence is a tool. Its nature depends on how it is used, and how do humans use it. Solen gestured at the display, where another transport was lifting off under covering fire from human fighters. To protect. Veltris watched the screen for a long time. Somewhere in the darkness of space, monsters were fighting to save a galaxy that had feared them, and they were just getting started. 3 months passed. The human campaign spread across 19 star systems. Admiral Stone's fleets established defensive positions that slowed the Devourer's advance from entire sectors per week to single planets per month. Millions of lives were saved. Worlds that had been written off as lost were evacuated before the darkness could consume them. And slowly, impossibly, the galaxy's opinion of humanity began to change. Public perception is shifting, reported Captain Elena Marsh, the fleet's diplomatic liaison. The Thornax Collective has formally apologized for Representative Crix's comments. The Watchers have offered to share their ancient archives with Earth. Even the Mordani are discussing removing all restrictions on human movement. Admiral Stone nodded, but her expression remained cautious. And the species that voted against us? Still opposed, but increasingly isolated. Then they will become desperate. Stone turned to Commander Holt. I want increased security on all our communications. Whatever they plan to do, we need to know about it first. She did not know about it. First, deep beneath the Great Hall, in a chamber that officially did not exist, Representative Crix met with delegates from 16 other species. All of them had reasons to fear a galaxy where humans walked freely. They must be stopped. Crix clicked, his mandibles sharp with anger. You have seen the reports. Their military technology is beyond anything we developed in 10,000 years. If they defeat the Devourer, they will be heroes, untouchable. They will use that influence to control us all. What do you suggest? Asked Arbiter Fennec of the Kethron Dominion. They are the only ones fighting. If we move against them, we doom ourselves. Not if the Devourer destroys them for us. Silence fell over the chamber. Explain, Fennec said carefully. Crix's compound eyes gleamed in the dim light. The humans are clever. They avoid direct battle with the Devourer. They use delay tactics and rescue missions to look like heroes while keeping their losses small. But if they were forced to fight directly, they would be consumed, and we would be rid of both problems. The other representatives looked at each other. It was monstrous. It was cowardly. It was exactly what civilized species did when faced with uncomfortable truths. How would we force them to fight directly? Someone asked. Crix made a sound that translated as cold laughter. We give the Devourer something it wants more than anything else. Something it will chase above all other targets. What? The location of Earth. The message arrived on a secure military frequency, supposedly from a spy within Crix's group. We have proof of a conspiracy against human operations. Evidence is being held at the following coordinates. Come quickly. Lives are at stake. It was a lie. Admiral Stone sent a reconnaissance team. They never returned. Admiral, Lieutenant Torres said. Her face pale. We have lost contact with Recon Team 5. Their last message said they were approaching the coordinates. Then the Devourer appeared. Stone's blood ran cold. The Devourer did not appear randomly. It followed patterns, drawn by concentrations of matter and energy. It did not simply show up at exact locations at exact times, unless someone told it where to go. Show me. The tactical display changed, and Stone felt her stomach drop. The Devourer was not just at the coordinates. It was moving. Fast, much faster than they had ever observed. And its path was unmistakable. It was heading directly toward Earth. Chancellor Veltries received the news in the middle of the night. You are certain? He asked, his skin cycling through colors of shock and horror. Yes, Chancellor, his aide said. Someone gave the Devourer Earth's coordinates. It has changed course and is now moving at 3 times its previous speed. At current rate, it will reach the human home system in approximately 45 days. And humanity's fleet? Still spread across the defensive lines. It would take weeks to recall them. By the time they reach Earth... Veltries closed his eyes. The implications were terrible. If Earth was consumed, humanity would be broken. Their population, their industry, their ability to continue fighting. All of it would be lost. The Devourer would absorb not just a planet, but an entire species' capacity for war. Then it would turn back to the rest of the galaxy, stronger than ever. Who did this? The aide hesitated. The intelligence suggests it was a coordinated effort by multiple council species. The same ones who voted against human membership. Crix, among others. Veltries felt something he had not experienced in decades. Pure, burning anger. He had been a fool. They had all been fools. While humans were dying to save them, while human soldiers were sacrificing themselves on worlds that were not their own, traitors within the council were committing genocide. Call the full assembly, Veltries ordered. Now, Admiral Stone received the news with unnatural calm. Around her, the bridge crew of the Defiance was barely holding together. Earth, home, everyone they loved. All of it was 45 days from being eaten. Admiral, Commander Holt said, his voice breaking, we have to go back. We have to? No. The word stopped him cold. Admiral. Stone turned to face her crew, and they fell silent at what they saw in her eyes. That is exactly what they want. If we abandon the defense lines, billions of lives across 19 systems will be lost. The species we came to save will be consumed. The Devourer will grow stronger, strong enough that nothing will stop it. Not even us. But Earth is not helpless. Stone's voice was iron. We left a garrison fleet. We have planetary defenses. We have time. 45 days is not time, Admiral. It is a death sentence. Then we use those 45 days. Stone turned back to the display, her mind racing. We do not abandon our positions. We hold the line. And we find another way to stop this. What other way? The Devourer cannot be stopped. You said it yourself. It absorbs everything we attack it with. It absorbs everything we attack it with, Stone agreed. But we have been fighting defensively, delaying, rescuing. We have never actually tried to destroy it because we thought it was impossible. She looked at her crew. Perhaps it is time to try the impossible. The Emergency Council session was the most hostile in history. Chancellor Veltris stood at the center of the Great Hall, flanked by armed guards. Weapons had not been displayed in this chamber for thousands of years. We are here because treason has been committed, Veltris announced. Treason against this council and against the species that answered our call for help. The accused sat in a separate area, surrounded by force fields. Representative Crix, Arbiter Fennec, and 15 others. Some looked defiant. Others looked desperate. This is nonsense, Crix chittered. We broke no laws. The humans are a threat to galactic stability. We were protecting. You gave the Devourer coordinates to a populated planet, Veltris interrupted. You deliberately aimed an extinction-level threat at a species that was fighting and dying to save us. That is not protection. That is murder. They are monsters, Crix hissed. Their history is nothing but violence. If we let them survive, they will turn on us. They will conquer us. They will. They will what, Representative? A new voice cut through the chamber. All eyes turned to the entrance. Elder Solan stood there, holding a data tablet. While you were planning genocide, Solan said, I researched human history more carefully than our ancestors did. Would you like to know what I found? She activated the tablet. Holographic images filled the chamber. Yes, humans have war in their past. So do the Thornax. So do the Kethrin. So does every species that ever achieved thought. But the humans did something none of us did. They learned. The images shifted. Ancient battlefields became negotiation tables. Weapons became handshakes. Ruins became rebuilt cities. Every time they destroyed themselves, they rebuilt. Every war taught them how to prevent the next one. They invented ideas like humanitarian law, war crime tribunals, peacekeeping forces, frameworks to limit their own destructive power. Solen's voice rose, and when they finally unified their world, they did not do it through conquest. They did it through choice. Nations that had been enemies for centuries chose to work together, not because someone forced them, but because they understood that cooperation was stronger than conflict. She looked directly at Crix. You call them ruthless, and they are. But their ruthlessness is not mindless destruction. It is determination. The refusal to give up on those who need help. The willingness to sacrifice themselves for others. She turned to face the full assembly. The humans were never the monsters. They were the ones who knew how to fight monsters. And while they fight and die for us, some on this council repaid that sacrifice with betrayal. Veltris nodded. The accused will be held pending investigation. But we have a more immediate problem. The Devourer is now heading for Earth. Does anyone have information that could help? Silence. Then, from the back of the chamber, a voice spoke. We do. Every head turned. Standing in the visitor gallery were 3 figures in strange environmental suits. Beings no one in the chamber recognized. We are the last of the builders, the central figure said. And we know how to stop what we created. The chamber erupted in shock and questions. But Admiral Stone, watching through a holographic link from the Defiance. Simply nodded. Hope had arrived. Now came the hard part. The three builders were unlike anything the Council had encountered. They existed partly outside normal space and time. This was how they had survived when the Devourer consumed their civilization 12,000 years ago. They could be seen but not touched, heard but not scanned. They were ghosts of a species that had destroyed itself. "We have watched," the lead builder said, her voice echoing through the chamber's crystals. "For 12,000 years, we watched the thing we created consume everything it touched. We watched civilizations rise and fall against it. We watched hope die across 100 worlds. And you did nothing," Chancellor Veltri said. It was not an accusation, just a fact. We could do nothing. The Devourer cannot be destroyed by force. It was designed to be indestructible. Every weapon, every energy source, every form of matter only makes it stronger. We tried everything. We lost everything. Then why come forward now?" Elder Solan asked. The builder turned her strange, shifting eyes toward the tactical display. The Devourer's path toward Earth was marked in red. Because for 12,000 years, we never met a species like the humans. The explanation took hours, but the core idea was simple. The Devourer cannot be destroyed, the builder explained, because it turns all matter and energy into itself. But there is one thing it cannot absorb. Nothing. Nothing. Veltris repeated. A true void. An emptiness so complete that existence itself does not touch it. We call it a null space. A region where there is no matter, no energy, no space or time. Just absolute zero. How does that help us? The Devourer follows matter. It is drawn to concentrations of existence, like a river flowing downhill. If you could create a null space big enough, the Devourer would fall into it. And without anything to consume, it would cease to exist. Admiral Stone's holographic image leaned forward. How do we create this null space? The builder hesitated. The process requires a seed, a starting point that spreads emptiness outward. We designed such a device 12,000 years ago, but we could never use it. The seed needs a containment, field strong enough to survive the null space forming around it. And the energy to create that field would be enormous, more than any civilization could produce. How much energy? Equivalent to converting an entire star into pure power. Silence filled the chamber. That is impossible, someone said. No, Admiral Stone said quietly. It is not. Admiral Thomas Ridd commanded the garrison fleet that had been left to protect Earth. He was 70 years old, a veteran of every major conflict in human history, and one of the finest military minds the Coalition had ever produced. When Stone's message reached him, he listened without interrupting. Then he gathered his senior officers. The Admiral's plan is straightforward, he said. We have 42 days before the Devourer reaches us. In that time, we need to evacuate as much of Earth's population as possible. And we need to prepare the null space device. Sir, Captain Omar Hassan said, the energy requirements would need us to destroy the sun. Yes, that would end everything in this solar system. Yes. The officers stared at him. Admiral Stone has made her decision, Reed said. We hold the defensive lines. We do not abandon the 19 systems we are protecting. And if Earth cannot be saved through other means, we make sure Earth's death serves a purpose. Sir, that is genocide. Our own genocide. Reed looked at her with eyes that had seen too much death. Captain, the Devourer has been eating civilizations for 12,000 years. Every species that faced it tried to run, tried to hide, tried to save themselves at the cost of others. Every one of them was eventually consumed anyway. He stood. Humanity will do something different. We will sacrifice ourselves to save others. We will take our sun, our home, our entire solar system, and turn it into a weapon that destroys an enemy that has haunted this galaxy since before most species existed. His voice hardened. That is not genocide, Captain. That is legacy. Over the next 37 days, something remarkable happened. 18 billion humans lived on Earth. The evacuation fleet could save perhaps 2 billion. There was not enough time. Not enough ships. Not enough space dot, and yet there was no panic. Admiral Reed expected riots. He expected violence and chaos. He expected the breakdown of civilization that had marked humanity's darker moments throughout history. Instead, he found cooperation. Families with many children sent some to safety and stayed behind with the rest. Elderly citizens refused evacuation so younger people could escape. Scientists and engineers volunteered to remain on Earth and operate the null space device, knowing they would die when it activated. Reed watched the evacuation reports with something like wonder. "Sir," Captain Hassan said, "the lottery results are final. We have twice as many volunteers to stay as we have spots to fill." Twice as many? People are refusing evacuation. They say someone has to stay. Someone has to make sure the device works. Someone has to make sure the devourer actually falls into the null space. Reed closed his eyes. This was it. This was what the galaxy had never understood about humanity. Yes, they were violent. Yes, they had destroyed and conquered throughout their history. But underneath all that darkness, there was something else. A willingness to sacrifice, a refusal to abandon others, a determination to do what was necessary, no matter the cost. The galaxy had called them monsters. Perhaps monsters were exactly what the galaxy needed. But the builders were still working. On a science vessel orbiting Mars, the three ancient beings collaborated with human engineers in a desperate race against time. Lieutenant Commander Felix Grant led the human team. He was young, brilliant, and had not slept in 5 days. "The problem is containment," the lead builder explained. "The null space device needs a field strong enough to prevent immediate collapse. Our original design used stellar energy because nothing else was powerful enough. There has to be another way," Grant said. "The physics do not care where the energy comes from. What if we used multiple sources? Dozens of ships feeding power into a single containment field? The coordination would be impossible. The smallest delay would cause the field to fail. Not if we use human neural links," the builder paused. "Explain." "Human minds can synchronize in ways other species find strange. We call it teamwork, but it is more than that. A kind of shared awareness that lets us work as one organism. Our military has studied it for decades. Elite units develop what we call battle mind, a connection that lets them act together without communication." He pulled up research data. If we could use that synchronization to coordinate multiple power sources. The builder's form went still. "You are describing something we theorized, but never achieved. A biological containment system. Living beings serving as the coordination network. Is it possible? Possible, yes. But the beings would need to maintain perfect synchronization throughout the entire process. Any moment of fear or doubt or pain would cause the field to fail. They would need to be ruthless," Grant finished. "Absolutely determined, no matter what." He smiled grimly. "I think we can find people like that." The call went out across the human fleet. Volunteers needed for the containment network. The requirements were brutal. Perfect synchronization, absolute focus, near certain death if anything went wrong. Within an hour, every ship reported the same problem. Too many volunteers. Admiral Stone selected the final team herself. 43 humans from across the fleet, soldiers, engineers, pilots, doctors. The youngest was 20. The oldest was 69. One of them was Commander David Holt. "You do not have to do this," Stone said when he reported to the briefing room. "Neither did you, when you stayed on the defense line instead of running home to Earth." Holt smiled. We are all ruthless, Admiral. Some of us just hide it better. The team assembled on a modified transport. Their neural interfaces linked together, creating a web of shared consciousness. For the first time in their lives, they felt what it truly meant to be human. Not individual minds working near each other, but a single awareness, spread across 43 bodies. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. And it was exactly what the builders needed. With 72 hours remaining, Admiral Stone sent a message to the entire Galactic Council. It was broadcast across every system, translated into every language, displayed on every screen. People of the galaxy, she said, in 3 days, the Devourer will reach our solar system. When it does, humans who stayed on Earth will activate a device that can destroy it forever. She paused. If the new plan fails, that device will also destroy our sun, our planet, and everyone who remained behind. 16 billion humans chose to stay. They chose this not because they wanted to die, but because they wanted the rest of you to live. Her voice grew stronger. For 200 years, you called us ruthless. You locked us away as a threat. You believed our capacity for violence made us unfit for civilization. You were wrong. Our ruthlessness was never about destruction. It was about determination. The refusal to accept that some things cannot be changed. The willingness to fight and die for those who cannot fight for themselves. She looked directly into the camera. 16 billion humans are about to prove that. They will sacrifice everything so the galaxy can survive. Not for recognition, not for glory, not for revenge. Simply because it is the right thing to do. Remember us. Remember what we were willing to give. And when the next threat comes, remember that ruthlessness, used for the right reasons, is not a curse. It is a gift. The message ended. Across the galaxy, 900 species watched in silence. The monsters were about to save them all, or die trying. Devourer entered the human solar system, like a spreading shadow against the stars. It was massive now, larger than when it consumed Kareth 4, larger than when it ate 100 worlds across 19 systems. The coordinates it had been given grew it like gravity pulls matter. It came with the patience of something that had been consuming civilizations since before most current species evolved. On Earth, 16 billion humans looked up at the sky and waited. Admiral Thomas Reed stood in the control center buried deep beneath a mountain. The null space device was ready. The solar ignition sequence was programmed. If the containment plan failed when he gave the order, the sun itself would become a beacon of absolute emptiness, a void that would draw the Devourer in and erase it from existence, along with everything else in the solar system. "Sir," Captain Hassan said, "we are receiving a transmission from the Defiance. Show me." Admiral Stone's face appeared on the screen. Behind her, Reed could see the tactical displays of her command ship. 19 systems worth of defensive positions still being held. Thomas, Rebecca, I am not going to ask you to stand down. I know, but I need you to wait. Give the builders more time. Give the containment team a chance. Reed's jaw tightened. Rebecca, the Devourer is already here. It has started consuming the outer planets. Neptune is gone. Every moment we wait, every moment you wait, the builders are finishing their work. A way to deploy the null space without destroying the sun, without destroying Earth. And if they fail, then you activate the backup. But Thomas, give us a chance. Give humanity a chance to survive this. Reed was silent for a long moment. You have until the Devourer reaches Mars' orbit, he said finally, not a second more. The Devourer had consumed Jupiter when the human fleet arrived. 300 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They moved as one, thought as one, fought as one. A reflection of the 43 volunteers who now formed the heart of the null space device. All ships, Admiral Stone broadcast, Begin Protocol Shepard. Maximum delay. Buy us every second you can. The fleet spread out, engaging the Devourer with everything they had learned in months of fighting. Gravity projections, electromagnetic bombardment, debris fields, anything to slow its advance, to give the containment team a few more precious minutes. The Devourer fought back. Tendrils of consuming darkness reached for the human ships, faster and more aggressive than anything they had faced before. It was as if the entity knew this was the final battle, as if it understood that everything depended on the next few hours. Ships died. The U's Valor, the UE's Prometheus, the UE's Unbroken. Each loss rippled through the fleet, but no one broke formation. No one ran. Containment field at 70%, Lieutenant Commander Grant reported from the science vessel. 80%, 90%. All ships fall back to minimum safe distance, Stone ordered. Prepare for null space deployment. Admiral, the Devourer is accelerating. It is heading straight for Earth. Then we deploy now. Stone's voice did not waver. Commander Holt, are you ready? Across the neural link, Holt felt the combined focus of 42 other minds. They were scared. They were uncertain. They were human, and they were absolutely determined. Ready, Admiral? Activate the device. The null space bloomed like an inverse star dot. It was not bright. It was not dark. It was simply nothing. An absence so complete that the eye could not process it. The mind could not understand it. Where the null space existed, existence did not dot, and the Devourer fell into it. For 12,000 years, the entity had consumed everything it touched. It had grown stronger with every meal, more powerful with every civilization it destroyed. It had seemed unstoppable, inevitable, eternal, but it could not consume nothing. The Devourer's tendrils reached for the null space and found no hold. Its mass pressed against the void and met no resistance. For the first time since its creation, the Devourer was not growing. It was falling into an emptiness that had no bottom dot the containment field held. 43 humans maintained perfect synchronization, their minds locked together in absolute focus as the null space expanded, as the Devourer was drawn deeper and deeper into oblivion. One by one, the volunteers felt their consciousness fading. The strain was enormous. The connection was too intense. They were dying, but they were dying together. A single organism giving its life to save a galaxy. Hold, Holt whispered through the link. Hold, we can do this. We are human. This is what we do. And they held. When the null space collapsed, the Devourer was gone, not destroyed. That word was too simple. Erased, unmade, returned to the nothing from which all things came. Of the 43 volunteers, only 4 survived. Commander Holt was not among them. Admiral Stone received the news on the bridge of the Defiance. She did not cry. She simply closed her eyes for a moment. Then she opened them and turned to face her crew. Send the following message on all frequencies, she said. The Devourer has been destroyed. The human solar system is secure. Earth is safe. Across 19 star systems, across 400 civilizations, the message was received. And for the first time in 3 years, the galaxy was not afraid. 1 month later, the Galactic Council assembled in full session. Chancellor Veltris stood at the center of the great hall, his blue skin steady and calm. Around him, representatives from across the galaxy waited in silence. We are here to acknowledge a debt that can never be repaid, Veltris said. He gestured, and the chamber's crystals projected images. The Battle of Kareth 4, the 19-system defensive line, the evacuation of 14 million souls, the null space deployment, the faces of 43 humans who had given their lives. For 200 years, this council classified humanity as a threat. We locked them away, treated them as monsters to be contained. We were wrong. He turned to face Admiral Stone, who stood with the remaining officers in the visitor gallery. The humans answered our call when no one else would. They fought for us when we had forgotten how to fight for ourselves. They sacrificed everything, not for power or glory, but because it was the right thing to do. Velchus's voice rose. That is not ruthlessness. That is courage. That is honor. That is everything we claimed to value, but had forgotten how to practice. He made a formal gesture of deep respect. Effective immediately, all restrictions on humanity are lifted. Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities. And may we never forget what they taught us about the true meaning of strength. Admiral Stone accepted the acknowledgement with grace. She spoke about sacrifice, about the volunteers who had died, about humanity's hope for lasting peace. But she saved her final words for the private meeting that followed. You have been very kind, she told Chancellor Veltris. But we both know this is not over. What do you mean? The Devourer was a threat created by the Builders' mistakes. It existed because civilizations grew careless, because they believed they had moved past the need for watchfulness. Now it is gone, but the attitudes that let it spread are still here. She looked out through the chamber's crystal walls at the galaxy beyond. 17 species tried to commit genocide against us. They would rather see humanity dead than admit they were wrong. Crix and his followers are in custody, but the fear that drove them is still out there. What are you saying? I am saying that humanity will always answer when the galaxy needs help. But we have learned something from this, Chancellor. Something important. She turned to face him directly. You called us ruthless, and you are right. But ruthlessness is not just the willingness to destroy. It is the willingness to protect, to sacrifice, to do what must be done when everyone else is too afraid to act. Her voice hardened. The next time a threat appears, and there will always be a next time, we will be there. But we will also be watching, because we have seen what happens when civilizations grow comfortable. We have seen what happens when fear turns into hatred. She smiled. It was the same smile she had worn in the council chamber months ago. Calm, confident, absolutely certain. We are the monsters you were afraid of, Chancellor. And now, double. We are part of your civilization. Remember that. She turned and walked away, her officers falling into step behind her. Veltris watched her go, his skin cycling through colors he did not have names for. The humans had saved the galaxy. They had sacrificed everything to protect species that had feared and hated them. And they had done it not despite being ruthless, but because of it. He thought about the Builders, who created a monster trying to solve a problem. He thought about Crix, who became a monster trying to avoid one. He thought about the volunteers, who conquered the ultimate monster through nothing but determination and love. Maybe the humans were right. Maybe ruthlessness was not about cruelty at all. Maybe it was about caring so deeply that you refused to accept defeat. On Earth, the survivors began to rebuild. Admiral Stone retired from active service. She spent her remaining years teaching at the military academy, sharing the lessons she had learned with the next generation of human leaders. Sometimes, late at night, she would climb to the roof and look up at the stars. She would think about David Holt and the other 38 volunteers who died in the containment field. She would think about the 16 billion who had been ready to sacrifice themselves. She would think about all the humans throughout history who had given their lives for others. They finally understand, she whispered to the darkness. They finally know what we are. And somewhere across the vast galaxy, 400 civilizations looked at humanity and saw not monsters, but guardians. Not threats, but protectors. Not mindless destroyers, but determined defenders of everything that mattered, the galaxy had called for. Monsters, and the monsters had answered not because they wanted power or revenge, because someone needed to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. And that, in the end, was what it truly meant to be human. That was what it meant to be ruthless. The council had finally learned its lesson. The best monsters are the ones who fight for you.